Hello, I'm Dana Ford, head coach of the Tennessee State Tigers men's basketball team, and I'd like to invite you to be a part of the Rebound Foundation game that takes place February 16th at the Gentry Center at 8 p.m. Central and can be seen on ESPNU. The mission of the Rebound Foundation is to provide the necessary building blocks for women and children recovering from domestic violence. You can make a contribution without being at the game at pledgeit.org, TSU Rebound Challenge. To find out more information about the Rebound Foundation, visit www.thereboundfound.org. You can also follow us on social media at the handle The Rebound Foundation. Help the Tigers stand up against domestic violence by pledging to end it.
For all your photo, video, and voiceover needs, check out the fine folks at Blueberry Productions. They will take good care of you. If you don't believe me, you can see for yourself. Check out their work at blueberryproductions.tv, the Facebook page, Blueberry Productions, also a Vimeo page, a YouTube page, and it's Blueberry, BLUBERRY, Prod on Twitter. Check them out today. Blueberry Productions, great people, great work, great service.
Fantasy football season is fast approaching, and if you're looking for an edge this season, you need to contact the guys at Draft Day Consultants. The concept is a simple one. Draft Day Consultants takes your requests and connects you with one of their trusted analysts, who then guide you through your draft. Whether you just need a sounding board on decisions, or if you need them to conduct your entire draft, Draft Day Consultants has you covered. Every one of their consultants has a proven track record of success, and have conducted hundreds, even thousands of mock drafts. Thanks to this year-round research and analysis, the guys at DDC have an unmatched understanding of player values. So gain an edge on your league mates this season by hitting up draftdayconsultants.com. That's www.draftdayconsultants.com. Now get after it, fantasy footballers.
Hip-hop fans, I got a great album for you. The debut album from Family Grind ENT, True Speech and 313 Fresh. We're going to give you 2 discs, 33 songs of pure, genuine hip-hop. Album is available on iTunes, Amazon, Google Play, illstreetrex.com, and streaming live right now on Rhapsody, Beats Music, Spotify, Xbox Music, Slacker Radio, and SoundCloud. Check them out today, True Speech and 313 Fresh, Family Grind ENT. Believe in it, get it.
We're back here on the JR the Bossman Show. We have a special guest for you, Troy Ball, author of Pure Heart, A Spirited Tale of Grace, Grit, and Whiskey here on the Bossman Show. Troy, got to talk to you tonight. How are things with you?
I'm great, JR. I'm happy to be on your show. Thank you for having me.
Yes, ma'am. And I'm really interested about your book because, you know, I just want to be on there. I like alcohol. Okay.
Well, that's a good thing. I'm your woman then.
Yeah, I like alcohol. So, full disclosure, I like alcohol. So, your book really got my attention. So, I really like that.
Now I know the secret to being on this show.
Yes, ma'am. Food and alcohol and sports always gets it done.
That's a good combo. It's been popular for this book tour, too.
Yes, ma'am.
We have a little whiskey tasting along with book signings.
Yes, ma'am. Let me ask you this. What are the events that made you want to get into the distillery business? And also, what made you want to write this book about the whole business, being the first lady to distill in North Carolina, the great moonshine?
Well, you know what happened was I met some old men up in the mountains in Madison County, and that's west of Asheville, and they started bringing around jars of moonshine and giving it to me as a little gift, you know. And I would open that jar and smell it, and it would just be burn. It would just burn your nose, you know. And finally I told the old guys, I said, I'm not really drinking this, so y'all don't need to give me any more. And this one man in particular, Forrest Jarrett, he says to me, Troy, he says, I want you to know they keep the good stuff at home, and it doesn't get given away. And I said, well, Forrest, if you ever get your hands on the good stuff, I'd be really curious what it's like. And so, like, 4 months go by, and Forrest shows up at my house one day with a jar of this moonshine. He says, I got something special for you, Troy. And I said, what is it? He goes, it's the moonshine. I said, no. He goes, no, this is the keeper kind. And I said, really? He goes, yeah. He said, promise me you'll taste it. And so that afternoon, my sister came over late in the day, and I said, Trish, Forrest brought some more moonshine. He swears it's the keeper kind, the good kind. And why don't you taste it? You know how you always do that to your siblings, right?
Oh, yes,
and
ma'am.
Anyway,
yes, ma'am.
she took a drink, and she goes, gosh, Troy, this is pretty good. You need to at least taste it. So I took a little sip, and sure enough, it was like a whole different, breed. It was a very smooth, nice white whiskey, and I couldn't figure out what made it different or why it was different. But I thought, I'm going to go down to the liquor store tomorrow, and I'm going to buy the white whiskeys on the market and see if they taste like this. And at that time, this is 2008, there were only, I think, 3 products for sale in North Carolina that were white whiskeys. And I bought each of them, and I tasted them, and they were nothing like what this guy had brought me. They were rough and burning hot and poorly made. And anyway, so that sort of set me on this journey, because I thought, gosh, if there's such a thing as a high-quality white whiskey, why in the world aren't we drinking American cocktails? Why are we drinking Russian vodka cocktails?
Exactly.
When we've got a really clean, beautiful white spirit in America? So that's what started this whole ball rolling. And about the book, my son actually I have 2 disabled sons, Marshall and Colton, and my third son is adopted. But Marshall and Colton are in wheelchairs and nonverbal and require full-time care. And so I named the whiskey brand Troy and Sons because my life had been about trying to take care of my boys, and I was hoping to create a business that would support them, when I'm old. But anyway, Marshall wrote a book, my older son, using an alphabet board, and he was on the Oprah Winfrey Show in 1999, and that show turned his book into a huge bestseller. And then Oprah had him back on the show in 99, 2000, and 2001. And so Marshall said to me I needed to write a book that told something about his story, because he's a very unique person. And so I filed that away and said, well, one day I'll get around to it. And then a friend encouraged me to write the story. And as you know how life happens to you, JR?
Yes.
Sometimes you just end up meeting somebody who happens to be the right guy, and the next thing you know, something else good is happening in your life. That's how this book came into being, really. I went to an event out in California. It's a variety magazine, and I was pouring little samples of whiskey for, the highfalutin movie stars that were there. And the bartender was a young 28-year-old who acted a little, and he happens to tell me that he had written a film and he was going to try to raise money to get it produced. And I was impressed with this young kid. He was that energetic, And he said he was doing an event in Soho in New York and inviting some millionaires to come to try to raise money. And I said, why don't you let me send some whiskey, just as a favor, so you have something kind of neat at that little event. And he was so blown away. And then he said, could you please come? And I said, well, gosh, when is it? And I found out I'm going to be in New York that day, just as chance would have it. And so at the end of the day, I was exhausted. And I thought, gosh, I don't want to have to travel across New York City again. But I knew I'd feel badly if I didn't show up for this young man. And I showed up, met a few people. One of the people I met was, of all things, a Syrian immigrant who had come to the States when he was 10 years old. And he now owned a very successful PR company in New York. And he was so taken with my story, he asked for my card. He sends me an email the next day, and he says, Troy, he says, I keep thinking about your story with your sons, and would it be all right if I passed your name on to a friend of mine in the book business? And I said, well, gosh, Abe, that's awfully nice of you. And then that's how that happened. And then I had one phone call with Peter McLigan in New York, and he said, gosh, I have a writer who would love to co-write this book with you. I just know it. And he is Brett Witter. And I didn't know who Brett was, but I said, gosh, I'm happy to talk to him. So I had one phone call with Brett Witter and told him my story. And he said, geez, he says, I would really be interested in co-writing this book with you. And I said, well, where do you live, Brett? He says, Decatur. And I said, you're kidding. Isn't that beside Atlanta? And he said, yeah. I said, well, I'm going to be in Atlanta in 2 days.
Right on time, right?
I know. You know how it's just those dominoes. It's just things in life happening, if you let it. Sometimes if you're just open to letting things happen, it all happens right and well. And so I met him in Atlanta. We had a cup of coffee and spent 2 or 3 hours just talking. He cried 3 times in the conversation. He was so touched by parts of my story. And so when we got up, he said, Troy, I want to help you with this book. Well, later I found out he had written Monuments Men, a film that starred George Clooney. He just had in production the movie Strong that was being filmed with Jake Gyllenhaal. And last week he told me that they had just signed Sandra Bullock in one of his films, for one of his books. So he is a very amazing writer, and Hollywood loves his books. I think he said they've bought 7 of his books for films. And he's just a genuine guy, lives there in Decatur with his family, and he's hardworking, and he just put a lasso on me and sat me down, and we hammered out this book over about eight or 9 months.
No, Troy, it's funny you say Decatur. I was just there today. I went to the mall today in Decatur. I was at the mall.
Oh, my gosh. Well, Brett's going to be with me at the Toco Hill Library event. So I hope I'll get to meet you there, JR. You need to come over for that.
Yes, ma'am. I hope I don't have a Hawk game to do that night. Hopefully I can get out there. If it's a Hawk game, I'll come there and see you up there.
Gosh, I wish. I wish, because it would be fun. I'll give you a hug and get to taste some of my whiskey.
Oh, I would love that. That's always a good thing.
Well, I don't know. They might not let us pour the whiskey at the library.
Hey, I can come to my car.
Yeah, I could probably find my way there.
Yes, man. Yeah. I also tell you, your story really warmed my heart, too, because my 2 older brothers are intellectually delayed. So it's like I'm the big brother, but they're older than me. So I can empathize with you, because my 2 brothers, I've had to kind of be there for them. My parents both passed away. They say I have their mothers, but our father, we're saying father. So I've kind of been like dad, brother, mentor to them. And, I'm just happy
JR,
they're
I
around
just
me.
learned a whole lot about you. Because I know what that means, and I tell you, I admire whatever you do for those boys, those brothers of yours, because it takes a family, it takes a village to take care of special needs, people. And my younger son, of course, is in the same role you're in. He's adopted, and his 2 older brothers really, will never ever be independent.
Exactly.
So I applaud you for helping your stepmothers and for taking good care. Any little kindness is appreciated, I know.
Yes, you know what?
Yeah.
They warm my heart. Those are my 2 best friends and my older brothers. They make me happy. I try to give them a piece of my lifestyle, have them with me. They might not fully grasp it, but just to have them with me and make them happy. And all the guys who I work with, the players I meet, the teams I cover, they're all nice to my brothers and allow them to come around. And so I really appreciate the people's warmth to them and making them feel as normal as possible. I try to give them as much normalness as possible. Not make them feel like they're different, So I'm happy for people like that. And when I heard your story, I was like, that's pretty much me with my older brothers. And I really get empathize with that, and I really appreciate that. And that's what my foundation does too. My foundation is about intellectual disabilities, helping kids with those disabilities be as normal as possible.
Oh, that is fantastic. Well, you need to let me donate something if y'all have an auction or whatever, because I like to support what I can. And I tell you, it sounds like you have a pure heart too.
Yes, ma'am, I do. Like I said, I'm 29 years old. I'll be 30 in March, and just losing both of my parents before the age of 27, kind of showed me how precious life is. And losing them both quickly, like it wasn't expected to happen so fast. So I got put in a position to take care of my brothers around my radio career. Yeah. So just having to be in that position is the Lord has blessed me to be humble and always take things for what they are. Never take anything for granted, because this life, you never know what happens. Like your story, things all happen for a reason. You're using New York for a reason. Using the indicator in this place for a reason. So it's all part of the Lord's plan to get you the way that you are today. And that's why I truly believe that. That's what I'm trying to live my life by every day.
Exactly. Well, don't you feel that you have special gifts because of your brother's special needs?
You're right about that.
Yes, you have. You have undoubtedly been shaped by having those guys in your life, and it's made you a stronger and better person. I'm certain of it.
It has made me so humble and appreciative.
Yeah, it makes you humble and grateful for all your blessings and what you can do for others.
Yes, indeed.
I mean, people ask me, what do you hope that this book does? What do you hope Pure Heart does? I said, well, I hope it inspires people to realize that no matter what kind of challenges they face, they can do something with their lives. They can overcome the obstacles that they face and turn lemons into lemonade. I hope that the book inspires people that way. And gosh, I'm so glad to know a little bit about your history. That's fantastic.
Yeah, I can tell you this. My mother, on her deathbed, even told me that, hey, as long as you have breath, you can do anything you want to do. She said, I might not have much breath left in me, but you got breath left in you for a long time. And accomplish your goals with the breath the Lord lets you have remaining. So that's kind of
your mother would be very proud.
Today.
Very. Mm-hmm. You know what? I go around the country. You're 29 years old. My sons are 30 and 28, so you're exactly right in the middle there. And I go around and I meet, amazing young people like this boy who's doing the films out in Hollywood, and a musician out in Brooklyn and here and there. And I always tell them, I said, you know what? You're going to be my adopted son now. And I think I'm going to have to make you be an adopted son now, JR, because we are all one big family, really.
Yes, we are.
And it's important that we find people out there in life who are there for us. You can send a text and say, hey, just hey, or you can send a text and say, hey, I've got an issue, or I'm thinking about something. What do you think? And so I'm including you in my group of sons because I think it's important. I want to do that with people, and I know you do it with people.
Yes, ma'am. It's crazy. Like I said, I was so excited to talk to you. I was telling some of the guys in Houston about your book. I was at the Super Bowl because the Falcons were down in the Super Bowl. I was down there for that, and I told some of the guys about your book, and I was like, "Well, we don't get tested in the offseason. We can get some of that."
Oh yeah.
Oh
yeah. Yeah. Well, they can find out TroyBall.com. They can find out about the books and the whiskey.
Yes, and I must ask you, how does it feel to be the first woman licensed to distill hard liquor in North Carolina? I love coming
up
from Panther games.
You're going to get a kick, JR. You're going to get a kick out of this. When I became licensed in North Carolina, I actually was the first woman to become licensed in America to make whiskey.
Oh, wow.
Did you know that? There were one or two other women out there that had formed distilleries, but they were producing, like one I think was making a gin and one was making a vodka, which are very different beasts from whiskey. They're often made from just neutral grain spirits they buy in bulk. And we were actually growing our grain doing our own fermentations and distillations all on site. So, we were doing it the harder way. I didn't know I was going to be the first woman to do that. At the time, I was just doing it because it seemed like the right thing to do. I remember a very smart man once said to a large crowd of people, Ross Perot back in the day, he said, if you want to be successful in a business, you need to study an industry and figure out what's missing. And so I had always remembered that, and when I ran across this white whiskey that I knew was not on the market, the style of, really clean, beautiful white whiskey, I thought, well, there's something missing on the market. And actually, it's missing on the American market at accounts, at liquor, at bars and things like that, because we should be drinking American cocktails, American-based cocktails. So, that's why I made the decision to do this. It's kind of wild. You never know where your life will lead you.
You're right about that, because I'll tell you, I thought I was going to be in the NFL, but that didn't work out for me. Now I'm on radio.
Really?
So, yeah, I played football, so I thought I'd make it in the NFL as a wide receiver, but that didn't happen. So I had to go to the radio real fast. I just
you know what? I have one NFL story. I grew up and went to school with Eric Dickerson. I don't know if you ever heard of him.
I like that guy. I saw him Super Bowl.
Oh my gosh, you should have seen him in high school play football. Oh, he would run down the field just stiff arming the guys that would try to tackle him, and they'd go flying. And some of the games we'd have to just cancel the game because the other team wouldn't have enough players left.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah. I know. Well, anyway, we sometimes life doesn't go the way we think it's supposed to go, and then it's funny because you look back and you realize that, gosh, some other door opened, and it leads to a really remarkable place too. I think that it's important, isn't it?
I could tell you that. I'm gonna tell you that it was God that made me in the NFL, because losing both of my parents at the ages I did, who would take care of my brothers, I was in the NFL.
Yeah.
Being in radio, I'm able to work my shift, cover the game, and come home. So I have a lot of flexibility to be at home with them. So
exactly.
I know that was God.
And also, you're able to touch lives. You're able to inspire people and impact their experience on a day-to-day basis, and you might not have had that experience if you've been in the NFL. You wouldn't have been able to reach into people's hearts. You wouldn't have been able to show people your pure heart. I think you're where you needed to be. It may not be what you wanted, but we just have to make the best out of whatever we've got in our life, and that's not always easy, and it's hard to stay upbeat about it all the time, but at the end of the day, I think usually something positive can come out of everything.
You're so right about that. And I must ask you this, Troy. It's really what I want to know from you. What all goes into making good moonshine? And what does moonshine originate from? Is it like a backwoods thing, or is it like a thing that was before it came over to the country? Like, where did it come from? And what's different about moonshine now than back then?
Okay. Well, actually, in the day, back in the 1700s, it wasn't called moonshine. The term moonshine only happened after Prohibition, when it became illegal and they started making whiskey at night under the light of the moon. But we have made whiskey in America since the Founding Fathers came. And that tradition was brought over originally by the Scotch-Irish. So up in the mountains, all up and down the East Coast, from the north to the south, even all the way to Texas, whiskey was made on local farms. And everyone made whiskey. It was very, very common because whiskey or white spirits were the basis of medicines even. So every family had a jar of what we call moonshine now, but they would have just called it whiskey then. And they would infuse herbs in it and a little honey and a little rock candy and then some medicinal plants. And that's what people took for medicine. So whiskey is traditionally made from corn, and the authentic moonshines were made from corn, water, and yeast. There was no sugar in them. In the turn of the century, in the early 1900s and late 1800s, when sugar started to be more available, sugar was then included in the fermentation process because it sped it up. Sugar is easily fermented. But real whiskeys, in fact, anything that's labeled whiskey cannot have sugar in it.
Okay.
So when you talk to people who are making whiskey today, you'll find most of them are actually making rum, but they call it moonshine. It's a fermentation with sugar and corn. But anyway, and also we make our whiskey with an old heirloom variety of white corn that had survived on this family farm since the mid-1800s. And that's what our ancestors would have used. They would have been using white corn because that was people's bread corn. And hominy, they made hominy from it and things like that. So it was the typical corn that people ate back in the day. Yellow corn was for feeding livestock. And I've been really amazed that these white whiskeys and moonshines were every man's occupation. I mean, in all the communities, in the black community, African American, and the white community, they all had a history of making moonshine, and it's something that shouldn't be lost in our society because it's part of our ancestry and our culture. Now, we should be careful about how we consume it.
Exactly. Exactly.
Right.
You're right about that.
Yeah. Anyway, I hope I answered your question.
Oh, you did. You did a great job. Well, I was going to tell you a quick story. I got moonshine. I was 16 years old at the barbershop, believe it or not.
Yeah. Yeah.
They had it at the barbershop underneath the barber counters for us to get you some moonshine.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
I was like, perfect. I couldn't tell my mother that I got some, but I left the barbershop feeling pretty good that day.
Yeah. Oh, my gosh. My mother about had a heart attack when I started making whiskey, because she didn't drink at all. And for her daughter to decide to open a distillery was just shocking. But after 5 years, she finally got to the point where she was telling people, oh, this is my daughter. She founded a distillery. So she slowly came around, but it was a long time coming.
And for the people who are going to buy your book, Pure Heart, A Spirited Tale of Grace Gritted Whiskey, what do you want them to get out of this book, Troy? Because I want my listeners to really go out there and get your book and come support you at the events in town here coming up here real soon.
Mm-hmm. And I hope they come see me at the Choco Hill Library at 7 p.m. on the 28th. Well, you know what? It's a mother's story of raising special needs children, and having one child kind of do unbelievable things and Marshall touched the lives of millions of people with his thoughts and books, and so it's that story, and then it's the really coming of age story for a woman who founded her business, but she had to wait until her children were healthy enough and old enough, and we weren't in a financial crisis. Actually, we were right in the middle of a financial crisis after 2008 when I founded the distillery. But hopefully it'll be an inspiring story and fun. You should laugh and cry both when you read this book.
Well, I'll tell you, I'm definitely inspired by your book, Troy, because I feel like, you and my stories kind of similar to each other, which really
exactly
it rang home with me. It makes me feel good to see people having the same struggle I had, the same journey I'm on, and living their dream, because I know for me, this is a dream right now I'm living. I never thought when I was a kid I would be a radio host and having a nice show the size of the show I have now, and just able to do what I've been able to do the last 7 years of radio. I never thought I had this gig.
Mm-hmm. I'm proud of you, and I know your mother and father would be proud of you too. I think it's remarkable, and I do feel we have a similar story. And I hope, JR, I get to meet you, and just want you to know you're one of the boys. You've got my cell number, and you can just call me anytime.
Well, I'm definitely going to send you a text when we get through this interview, send you a text with all my information on there. And, I can't wait. Hopefully the 28th, the Hawks will have a game that day, hopefully. I'm praying because they'll have a game that day.
Okay. Well, I'll be in town all day. I can meet up with you earlier.
Okay,
so
that sounds
good. Don't you worry. I'd really like to spend some time with you and hear about your foundation. I'm setting up a foundation as well in Asheville, so maybe we have some common ground there.
Oh, yes, we do, Troy. And I say it's been a great time having you on the show. Usually I don't do interviews this long, but you were so good. I said forget commercials. I'm gonna go blow right through those. I'll get those later.
All right, you tell everybody now your son, JR. Your son, JR. Troy and Sons, and you're one of my sons. I'm claiming you. I appreciate it so much. Thank you for having me on.
You're welcome, Troy. You have a great day. I'll talk to you soon now, okay?
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Folks, it was Troy Ball here on the Bossman Show.
Hello, I'm Dana Ford, head coach of the Tennessee State Tigers men's basketball team, and I'd like to invite you to be a part of the Rebound Foundation game that takes place February 16th at the Gentry Center at 8 p.m. Central and can be seen on ESPNU. The mission of the Rebound Foundation is to provide the necessary building blocks for women and children recovering from domestic violence. You can make a contribution without being at the game at pledgeit.org, TSU Rebound Challenge. To find out more information about the Rebound Foundation, visit www.thereboundfound.org. You can also follow us on social media at the handle The Rebound Foundation. Help the Tigers stand up against domestic violence by pledging to end it.
For all your photo, video, and voiceover needs, check out the fine folks at Blueberry Productions. They will take good care of you. If you don't believe me, you can see for yourself. Check out their work at blueberryproductions.tv, the Facebook page, Blueberry Productions, also a Vimeo page, a YouTube page, and it's Blueberry, BLUBERRY, Prod on Twitter. Check them out today. Blueberry Productions, great people, great work, great service.
Fantasy football season is fast approaching, and if you're looking for an edge this season, you need to contact the guys at Draft Day Consultants. The concept is a simple one. Draft Day Consultants takes your requests and connects you with one of their trusted analysts, who then guide you through your draft. Whether you just need a sounding board on decisions, or if you need them to conduct your entire draft, Draft Day Consultants has you covered. Every one of their consultants has a proven track record of success and have conducted hundreds, even thousands of mock drafts. Thanks to this year-round research and analysis, the guys at DDC have an unmatched understanding of player values. So gain an edge on your league mates this season by hitting up draftdayconsultants.com. That's www.draftdayconsultants.com. Now get after it, fantasy footballers.
Hip-hop fans, I got a great album for you. The debut album from Family Grind ENT, True Speech and 313 Fresh. We're going to give you 2 discs, 33 songs of pure, genuine hip-hop. Albums available on iTunes, Amazon, Google Play, illstreetrex.com, and streaming live right now on Rhapsody, Beats Music, Spotify, Xbox Music, Slacker Radio, and SoundCloud. Check them out today. True Speech and 313 Fresh. Family Grind ENT. Believe in it. Get it.